Now it's time for the Voice for the Industry podcast.
Well, Carissa, that was a really fun conversation with Brian. A really interesting conversation, I should say, more accurate. It was both. It was fun and interesting. But, Brian with OcuTrap, I mean, just a great idea and a great product. It's a trap that you can release remotely. It's friendly to the animals that you don't want trapped. It uses a lot of technology to make it easier for both the companies providing the trap and the customers.
Yeah, definitely pioneering in the industry and hearing how it can save time and money. It's a great conversation with Brian.
Yeah, it was humane, and some of the future things they're going to do are pretty exciting to see. And I can't wait to see them come out. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. We got some really cool, exciting information to talk about. We're with Brian Quispe of OcuTrap. He's the co-founder, not the cow-funder, the co-founder of OcuTrap. And we're going to talk a little bit about the amazing technology they've developed to really provide a higher level of trapping. Brian, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Raymond, for the introduction.
It's good to have you here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read your bio. It's pretty short. I've had some really long ones, and then we'll just jump right in. So, Brian Quispe is the co-founder of OcuTrap. That's OcuTrap with a capital T in the middle. Where he has led the company from concept to a recognized player in the pest and wildlife control industry. With expertise in business operations, finance, and go-to-market strategy, Brian has driven sales, secured strategic partnerships, and built momentum through national trade show outreach. He is focused on shaping the future of pest and wildlife control by introducing smarter, more efficient, and humane solutions that redefine how the industry operates. That sounds like a really good plan to me. Welcome again. Nice to have you.
Well, thank you, Raymond, and thank you for that introduction again.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And it's funny because you mentioned national trade shows. Well, I actually met your partner, which I didn't realize he was your partner at the time, at a MPMA event at the end of last year. So you're definitely out there because I saw you. I'm sure other people did too. So great
Yeah,
job.
yeah. And
All
then
right.
I was also lucky enough to see you at Pest World as
Pest World,
well.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. And you were manning like 3 different booths, and I was like, I wonder if I'm gonna find Raymond. And then lo
Yeah,
and behold,
there I
you were
was.
in
Yeah,
that one. So
I was in the big one that popped up
yes,
there. Yeah. So
exactly.
yeah, we do a voice for pest. We do our divide and conquer strategy. We have a booth in the middle and one on each side. It works pretty well. We seem to get a lot more traffic. But anyway, so here we go. So we're going to get started. So the first thing I think everybody wants to know is share the story behind OcuTrap. Where'd you come from? What inspired you to co-found it, pursue this specific technology? Kind of why is OcuTrap here and what got you here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it all started with my co-founder and I, Graham and I, were roommates at Lehigh University back when we graduated in 2020. But prior to that, we always had an idea or vision to start some sort of company that brings value to an industry, that may need it or that may be looking for some sort of innovation. And so we were always thinking and brainstorming about different ways that we could help. There's probably thousands of industries and provide value to it. And so we always played with that idea and we wanted to start a company. And so we started attending our university's pitch competitions, looking at various students' startups, different ideas that they have. And we felt inspired to start something of our own. But we were like, if they can do it, why can't we do it right now? But like any startup or any entrepreneur, we wanted to have like the perfect start or the perfect MVP. But that is a common pitfall. And it's contradictory to what an MVP is supposed to be because it's supposed to not be perfect. And so that's why we're like, okay, we need some sort of, guidance into this. We need some sort of mentorship or we need some sort of program in order to show us the ways of how to start a company, where to start, what to look for in, successful companies and what people are doing in current industries. And so we decided to sign up for a program at our university, an accelerator that helps, students build a startup. And that was pretty much the precipice of Aki Trap itself. And we knew we wanted to stick with this program for a little bit and make sure that we took on the guidance and the right mentorship in order to start a company on a good foot.
Makes
And so
sense. Makes sense.
we took that guidance, and that guidance from Lehigh University's accelerator called the Hatchery. They focused on the ideas and principles of design thinking, and that was really what helped us, succeed as far as we have in the past 5 years. Because I think a lot of startups or a lot of new businesses tend to either fail or pivot within the first few years. And that's completely fine. But we knew that we wanted to keep it going for this specific thing. And the first idea of design thinking is empathizing with the user within the industry. And so both Graham and I aren't avid trappers, nor do we call ourselves trappers in the area. But we pretty much set out and cold called like hundreds of different pest control companies, wildlife control companies, contacted PCOs, and wanted to hear their side of the story, and wanted to see if there is something that could be done within the field. And so we interviewed and surveyed about 300 plus PCOs in order to make sure that we have the right solution or somewhat of a solution for
Yeah.
them. And one of the biggest pain points that they had was pretty much going back to sites in order to check the traps, but seeing that the trap is either empty or has a non target animal or has been falsely triggered. And that usually takes away a lot of their time within their day when they could be putting down more traps. And they were like, currently they have different cameras such as, Tacticam, Arlo, and all these different ones. But a lot of them don't give them the autonomy of using, opening or closing the door, or resetting the trap essentially
Right.
from a distance. And so that defining that specific problem was the second stage of design thinking. And then ideating and prototyping were the next steps for this specific thing. And so with those,
I'll interrupt you real quick. Sorry. What made you choose pest control? Because it sounded like you really you didn't have a target industry. What
yeah.
made you choose pest control to kind of develop all this for?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we initially had, I guess, so we had similar to what we have right now, the Aki Trap box or the pod itself. We had that essentially made, and around that time that we were creating this idea, and this was around COVID. And so I remember back from my personal experience, when I was going back to my parents' house, and a lot of their garden was getting messed up by the nuisance animals, wildlife that were just like looking for food or things to grab from the garden. And, like I said from the beginning, I'm not a trapper, and I tried trapping these animals, but I would never trap the right animal. I would sometimes
Right.
capture a stray cat. And so I had that personal problem already with my parents
Okay.
and their garden. And then I was telling Graham about this, and I was like, hey, this is like a recurring problem that I have. Is there some way that we could integrate what we already have, because it wasn't particularly used for the pest control industry. It was just kind of like a box that we had, and a
Got it.
smart box. And then I told him about this, and he's like, "Hey, he also had a similar problem down at his house in Austin. He has like a big area, big land, and you know, Texas has a big hog problem, and trapping is really big down there as well. And he traps more than me, but he's like, it's really difficult to capture certain animals, especially in a vast area that is occupied by
Right.
various different types of animals, even like armadillos and stuff, and nutrias, or it depends on what there is in the area. So
Right.
it was difficult for him to capture the right animal. And so both him and I had the same problem,
Okay.
but we couldn't validate it, obviously with our own experiences. And so that's why we set out to talk to various pest control operators.
That's it. That's interesting that it was really born of your personal frustration
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of times, I used to work at a company, we did wildlife, and you get a lot of cats.
exactly.
You get a lot of cats, or you're trying to catch an armadillo and you get a possum, or it just, yeah, well, no, that's fascinating. So you guys basically just, said we want to be entrepreneurs, build a company. Hey, we have this device. Here's this situation that we both experienced, and I also I think it's amazing, and I applaud you, of course, for going out and interviewing and understanding your customer base, because a lot of companies get these great products, but they don't really understand how that product's going to really benefit their target audience, right? It's a great
Yeah.
idea, but so that's amazing. So So what is OcuTrap? What's it do? It's IoT enabled. Give us, tell us the wonders and amazingness of OcuTrap and how it works.
Yeah. So OcuTrap is essentially a combination of sensors, motors, and software in which it enables it to be a smart system. And that's essentially what is called an IoT enabled system. But in simplistic ways, we just call it a smart trap or a smart cage trap. And that smart cage trap, you're able to monitor, manage, and control the trap from anywhere and at any time due to its sensors that we provide you with. So as a motion and depth sensor, and then as well as the camera, which allows it to be viewed remotely through the LTE connectivity that it has. And so it has that cellular connection. And in most places of the United States where there is some sort of LTE connectivity, it will connect to it, and you will be able to see what is inside the trap. And so that is essentially what makes it that quote unquote IoT enabled system. So.
Okay. Yeah, so you can access it from anywhere as long as you have internet access, right? You can see it. But you said something earlier, which to me really distinguishes. You can reset the trap, so you don't have to drive out there or ask your customer to do it, right? You could just do it anywhere from anywhere, right?
Yeah. You could simply reset the trap and open and close the trap whenever, wherever. And although, there's various regulations in which they have to check the traps as per their state law 24 to 48 hours, some of them may even capture something within the 24 hours and they still have to go back out there. And they're like, okay, well, we were just going to head back home after our shift is over, but now there's something in there. And so
Right.
that kind of, messes up their routes or their plans for the day.
Right. So if they see a cat in there, they can just open it up and let the cat out and reset it, right?
Yeah, simply, yeah, if they see a cat, if that's not what they're trying to capture,
Right.
then they could simply reset it, open up the trap, and then let go of the cat. But, some people do capture cats, for
Yeah.
the trap, neuter, return
Right.
programs as well. So it just depends. Those people who are trapping cats specifically may want to release the raccoons because their
Exactly. Right.
trappers are not even used to handling a raccoon. So they're like, this is a little bit tough for us. And so that's the biggest
That
thing
makes a lot
for
of
them.
sense. So, and
Yeah.
I would assume that they get an alert on the app on their phone or on the computer, right? That says, "Hey, if there's something in there," and then they could see it, and so they don't have to like watch it all the time. They get a
Yeah,
notification.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could customize your notifications. You could get notifications in terms of motion, in terms of whether you captured something or not. And so that is something that we left to the decision of the operator itself. There is default settings. But yes, it will send you a notification if something is captured, and then it'll tell you the time and everything and, give you that picture indication of what's inside the trap.
Okay. That's pretty amazing. Is there any other trapping functionality out there in the market like that right now that could do all the things you
Not
guys can
at
do?
Not as of right now. I
Right.
think we are one of the first to do it within the industry, which is why we got it patented last year in June of 2024. We got our full patent granted for in order to secure target animals within a given trap. And so that was one of our biggest benefits for us. But at the same time, we do care about, the industry itself and innovation. And so, there are ways that we could integrate our system with other systems as well. And, people still use whatever cameras they have or any other devices that they may have that could help them trap as well more effectively.
Alright, so they don't have to start all over and go buy a bunch of new equipment if they already have stuff. You guys can most likely modify it and make it work with what they have to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, we're selling the all in like pretty much the entire system, like the cage, the camera, the sensors, everything as its own. But eventually, we believe that people, can integrate the other stuff as well, and that could be something that is popular for certain people that may just want one software, one
Right.
thing as well.
Well, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. That's pretty fascinating. Yeah, I have I go to a lot of trade shows. I go to a lot of exhibits, and the first time I saw anything like it was when I saw you Graham in Savannah. So that's pretty interesting that I think you guys got a good head start. What's going on out
Yeah,
there? Yeah. All right.
definitely, yeah.
So if I'm a wildlife operator or somebody who's trapping for whatever reason, but trying to impress my parents and failing because I can't get rid of the animals in their garden, right? So what's the biggest like difference that somebody will notice when they switch from a traditional trap to using the OcuTrap system? Like, what's like going to stand out for them?
Yeah. So the biggest difference is operators notice whether they're a small mom and pop shop with 1 to 3 employees or like a bigger pest control company that may have hundreds of employees, is they're immediately going to be able to save the time on their routes. Every PCO or operator has their own routes in which they have to check their traps and comply with their local state laws. But sometimes they have to go back, as I mentioned, to their traps within the same day to simply reset the trap due to a false trigger or even a non-target capture. And so within our initial studies of, we did 1 full year of beta testing, pretty much last year, 2024, before we started commercializing it. And before that, we started testing it on our own for about 2 to 3 years. We estimated that the OcuTrap can save them about up to 70% of their time. And
Wow.
so that is dependent on, what their routes are, what they're doing. But for the most part, they'll immediately start saving time from, non-target captures or false triggers, because a lot of these traditional cage traps just have a trip panel, that as
Right.
soon as something touches it, or if there's some sort of weight, or even if there is, any sort of movement in the mechanism, it will close and shut. And then the pest control operator or the owner of the pest control company may send out a technician to go reset it. And that can take anywhere between 30 minutes to 60 minutes round trip for them to
Right.
just, go out there, reset it, and then come back. And then that time can be saved if they have that Aki trap, because like like I previously said, you could remotely open or close or reset the trap depending on, what is the given circumstance. And, secondly, like something I just pointed out, was people like these smart traps or the Aki traps because they don't have a traditional trip pan. So what makes this, unique is we have two sensors, which is a motion sensor, which pretty much tells the camera that there's something going around the trap, just to watch out. The second thing that triggers I guess, the system itself, the Aki trap, is the depth sensor, or like a measurement sensor, which measures how far the animal is inside the trap. And then as the animal is fully inside the trap, then the trap will close on its own, making sure that the animal is fully inside the trap and it doesn't get caught by the door itself. And that is all adjustable within the app. So say, for example, there's a juvenile raccoon that's trying to go inside that's a lot smaller than a mama raccoon, then, you could set the different depth sensor. So if it's a
Okay.
juvenile raccoon, then you could set a trigger distance of 6 inches from the back of the trap. But if it's a mama raccoon that's, bigger or twice the size, you might want to set it to 2 to 3 inches from the back of the trap so that it's fully inside and, doesn't
Okay.
manage to get out. So
Like
that
an
is
elevator door, right? It just won't shut.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
yeah. Exactly. So yeah, think about the elevator door and
Yeah.
like so you don't get caught in there,
Right.
but we also want to make sure that, the animal's fully inside and,
Right.
they can't manage to wiggle their way out. And so that's one of the main things that a lot of operators see differences in switching from the traditional trap to our trapping system itself. And that is one of the key things. The other, I guess, one of the other important features that we have is people like knowing exactly where their traps are. And, a traditional cage trap, an operator may have written it down or they know where their clients live, but sometimes they may have multiple traps, especially during birthing season. During the spring season, they may have tens, dozens of
Right.
traps out there. And so instead of just always constantly checking, where their traps are or whether they wrote it down or where their clients are going into their CRM or field service management software, then on the OcuTrap app, there's a GPS for each of the traps. And
Oh,
so
wow.
they know exactly where the trap is located at all times, but the manager can also know, which traps belong to which people. So the manager or the supervisor may assign certain Aki traps to technician one. And so technician one has 1 through 5 traps and he has this area of the county or this area of the state. And so you pretty much can set that on your own. And then technician two can have Aki traps 6 through 10, and then they could put different labels on it as well, which allows them, to be a lot more organized, but know, who's doing their daily checks,
Right.
who's, doing the compliance, because being compliant is super important to them, because if they're not complying or if they somehow forget to check the traps, then they will get fined. And so then that's something that we're trying to prevent them from doing as well. But also another important thing that people have mentioned, which is funny, is that even with traditional cage traps, people either may want to take it, destroy something. And so with our trap, you'll be able to locate exactly where the trap is going, similar to like an Apple AirTag or like a
Right.
Find My iPhone thing. And so that'll help you pretty much locate the trap. And although maybe someone may just move it or put it somewhere else, then you'll know exactly where it is, with that feature that we have as well. And lastly, one of the other features that we do have, which we saw was important, especially down south, but also up north, is having temperature sensors,
Oh,
which
okay.
similar to your phone, it alerts the user when the system is either getting too hot or too cold for the animal. And so imagine us, we're based out of Austin, Texas. And so when we were doing field testing and beta testing as well down south, the weather can go pretty high. It
Yeah,
can go
weather in
100
Texas is
degrees.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it'll be
is.
100 degrees today. It's snowing tomorrow. I've seen it. It's
Exactly.
crazy.
It could
Yeah, it's
easily be
crazy.
that. And so
Yeah,
and so we had various days in which we were testing in Texas, but also some of our beta testers out in Georgia or Florida, and that type of weather, it's very hot as well. And so we knew that, although you can get the alert that there is an animal inside, you know, with a traditional cage trap, you might get to it the next day, but then the next day, it might be already too hot or too late or
right.
something. And so this temperature sensor just gives you a simple alert, saying that, hey, this trap is getting too hot. You might want to go check on it, or, have someone check on it, reset it. Um, or if it's getting too cold as well, that's another thing as well. If it's getting too cold, the animal
Right.
can be frozen or something. So get
Yeah.
too
No,
cold.
it sounds like you guys thought about everything. I didn't even think about the temperature, and that makes so much sense. And to me, with my experience, in the pest control world, time is money. That if that technician's not, if not, he's not working or she's not working, they're not producing, revenue. They're not taking care of the customer. So what I'm excited about is that mapping is really big because I know you go out there sometimes, like if a different technician set it up, right? And you have to go check it, or, you could spend a
Yeah.
lot of time just trying. And like you said, for some reason, people like to move traps. So I don't know if
Yeah.
there's like this secret community out there, but you're right. A lot of times they get moved. So just the amount of time, which equals money and productivity that they can save by not having to figure out where that trap is. And especially on a bigger property, like you said, when there's a lot of traps, it makes a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of sense. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
definite
Yeah.
definitely, and one more thing to add is that people, a lot of our current clients are using it because, they don't work on weekends, or they might, shut off the traps for the weekends, and so instead of going to a dozen locations just to close the traps,
Right.
on a Friday evening, and then reopening it on Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, then with the OcuTrap, they can just do it from their office and then say like, "Hey, we're closing up the traps for the weekends." They could even show a picture to like the game warden, even if they do have to go out there still to check it out. Like, "Hey, we closed the traps at this time. Nothing can get in. We're
Right.
not letting anything get in." And then once the weekend's over, Monday morning, they could simply reopen, reset the traps, and then have it working again. And so that's another thing a lot of
That's
these pest
huge.
control operators
Yeah.
notice about, just a very simple, advantage, but something they pointed out to us, which initially we didn't think about. But, they really were like, this is a really big game changer, especially for us trappers that may have hundreds of traps, or maybe like, it just depends, or tens of dozens of technicians out there. So
Right.
instead of sending one person just to reset every trap, they can simply just do it from their phone or dashboard, and they could simply just close the traps for the weekend.
Yeah. No, that's huge. Well, and the other thing that I get excited about is, like you said, the temperature sensor and the ability to open it remotely. It's obviously much more humane because even though a lot of the times you're trapping animals that you and ultimately get rid of, quote unquote, they
Yeah.
end up sleeping with the fishes, right? You still want it to be humane. You don't want to hurt them or cause them more stress or whatever than they need to.
Mhm.
experience. And then also, like you said, a lot of times you get the wrong target animal. And so was that like a big focus to make sure that you guys were able to provide this wonderful technology and still do it in a humane way?
Yeah, so at Aki Trap, we always believe that technology, should make trapping smarter, but also kinder, And so humane practices aren't something extra for us. They're literally the foundation of what we do and what we pretty much wanted to integrate within our current systems. And, there's always that crossroads of, not only making things humane, but also more effective for the people because it has to make sense for the pest control owner or the trap neuter return organization and to buy these traps. And so if something is more humane and more effective, then it's a no-brainer for them to buy something like this or to have it within their toolbox for certain occasions in which it may need an Aki trap. And so traditional trapping often leads to like a lot of uncertainty, and an animal could be stuck in a cage for hours or even
Right.
overnight before anyone checks. And, that can be stressful for the animal and maybe even inefficient for the operator as well. But, what our system does is, eliminate that waiting game and the guessing game of like what's inside, what time did we capture it. They don't have to deal with neighbors that may be complaining about, hey, there's been an animal stuck in there for 10 hours. And you're like,
Right.
no, we actually just caught it 30 minutes ago. And so that's something that you could use to your advantage because a lot of pest control operators were always saying that, you know, we know that we caught something within the past, 24, 48 hours, because they have to make their checks, but they don't know when exactly they caught that. And
Right.
sometimes they run into a problem with the client itself or the client's neighbor, and these neighbors can, get riled up because they just see an animal in distress. And
Right.
so that's something that we wanted to eliminate with the Aki trap itself. And the operator gets a real-time alert and can see exactly what's happening, before the animal gets captured. It takes a lot of pictures and you could see exactly what's around the trap, but also while the animal is inside the trap. And so it is a great way and a humane way of trapping, but also that means faster responses, fewer unnecessary trips, and significantly less suffering for the animal,
Right.
not only during pre-capture and during the capture phase, but also once they're trapped inside the trap, and there's gonna be released or whatever they need to do with the animal itself. There's that limit between the animal to person contact, so they don't have to be right next to the trap in order
Right.
to let go of the animal. Because if you're right next to the trap and some animals they're relocating, then they can be very stressed out and then
Yeah.
get aggressive towards the operator itself. And
Absolutely.
so, it's not only more humane, obviously, for the animals, but it's a lot safer for the operators
Yeah, it makes
themselves.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they could be in their, trucks and just simply press open and the animal goes about its merry way, and it's very simple for them to do that. And so I think, the biggest shift that we're driving is not only like the more humane and effective practices of it, but we're driving a more cultural one in which we're showing that, humane wildlife control and effective operations don't have to be opposites, they actually reinforce each other. And so when people have, better information and better tools within their toolbox, they can make more better, more compassionate
Right.
decisions. And that's essentially the vision and the future that we're trying to build at Aki Trap, with not only this specific trap, but also for bigger size cage traps and smaller size cage traps.
So, I have a bird feeder that has a
Uh-huh.
camera on it and it
Yeah.
uses AI to tell me which bird was eating. Does yours OcuTrap have that ability yet where it can tell you like this is what was I mean, I know you could see it, but does it capture and say identify the animal for the operator?
Yeah, so it there is a feature behind the scenes that is enabled. It's not available yet to the public
Okay.
yet because there are systems and algorithms in place right now that we're training in order to get it, correctly. Because
Right.
funny enough, like think about teaching a toddler what the differences between animals are. This model, essentially, we're trying to teach it what the difference between a striped cat that may look like a raccoon
Okay.
from an actual raccoon. And
Got it.
so that's a
Got it.
very simple way of like how the AI is working behind the scenes. And so we're pretty much feeding it pictures and making sure that it's deciphering whether or not it's a cat, a raccoon, a skunk, a possum, an armadillo. And so that takes time for it to build up. And, there are already implementations on it. We're going to try and do it within the next year. But right now we're more focused on, the remote open and closing of the actual trap itself. We think AI is going to help us,
Sure.
get get to this point a lot faster. And we also think that AI can also just help it become more humane, but also having that human intervention is still part of the process, like any sort of process. And we still want the pest control operators to be a part of the process. And so then that's why we give them that autonomy or decision to, either open or release the animal, or if it's a non-target as
Right.
well.
No, so it sounds like you got some good plans for the future and what you want to do. What you could you go to the next level where depending on what animal is, you could have it like play music to soothe
Yeah.
the savage beat. That maybe it can dispense water. No, I'm kind of being silly, but no, it sounds like you guys have done a really good job of understanding your customer base, their needs, and the benefits you can provide them. And I mean, I saw the trap when I saw it, your partner had a stuffed animal in it, and
Yeah.
everybody that walked by the booth was like, "Whoa, is that?" Because they were concerned about this animal in the trap.
Yeah.
But it just sounds like you've done a really good job of, and like I said, understanding the needs of your customer base and ways to make it better overall. And I'm really impressed. So, what else? You got anything new coming down the road you can share? Any new innovations? I know you're talking about the ability to identify the animal. You got anything else coming up that you want to talk about?
Yeah, yeah. We're really excited about like what's gonna happen next and within our roadmap for Aki Trap. And one of the projects in development and what we're trying to do within the next year is have an automatic feeder. And so pretty much, similar to like some sort of I think there's a lot of dog system treats or cat system
Yep.
treats that is an automatic feeder. I think they're called like furbos or something. And so we want something similar like that, but within our trap, and so people won't have to, put their own bait, or if they still wanna put up their own bait and, have this automatic feeder as well, then that lets operators, pre-bait remotely or keep the wildlife engaged in a more controlled and humane way, as opposed to, there could be just 1 can of food or marshmallows or peanut butter, and it could be all gone, it just depends. And so that not only increases capture efficiency, but also reduces, the stress and the guesswork involved in setting and rebaiting traps manually. But currently what we have in place, people always ask us about, you know, uh, that system, that automatic feeder isn't implemented yet. We're still going to have to go out there to rebate it. So how are you guys solving that right now? And a very simple way that we did that was by adding a buzzer within our trap itself. And so if they see that there's an animal inside the trap that is a non-target animal, then they could simply it's like an alarm system for like someone that an intruder essentially. And so it's pretty much a buzzer that just makes a noise and then it vibrates the cage and it's enough to scare away the non-target animal pretty much.
Got it.
And in a very humane way. It's not doing it in a
It's
bad
not
way or
causing them any physical trauma of any kind.
exactly,
It's scaring them a
exactly.
little bit. Yeah,
Exactly, because like,
yeah,
they think they're on their own and they could simply just go in the trap, but if they think that there's someone around them or is trying to, like, move them, then they might just move out of the way, and so it has been working pretty well right now, and so if people see that there's a non-target, they could simply press the buzzer button, and then they could just scare that animal away before it takes away the bait that's inside the trap, and so that is something that is currently a solution, but obviously we want to improve on that solution. And
right.
so that is one of the projects in development right now is that automatic feeder. Uh, Another thing that I've already hinted at is we're also developing different size cage models. And so, the same smart core, pretty much same smart technology, which is the sensors, camera, and the motor itself. We want to adapt that to, different size traps for small rodents, to large animals like foxes or even dogs as well, larger dogs. And so that modular approach, lets pest control companies standardize their tech, across their whole operation instead of juggling, a dozen trap types and stuff. And so this could just improve their toolbox in ways that, they wouldn't have imagined years ago. And so
Right.
having these
Right.
different size cage models can definitely be a benefit for not only pest control owners that have been in the industry for decades or multi-generational families and they that may want to advance and use new traps, but also for new trappers or new operators that want to get ahead of the game or get ahead of the curve or differentiate themselves and use our Aki trap. But eventually if we do have different size cage models, then they'll be able to have a whole fleet of them if they
Right.
wanted to. And
Yeah.
and that can be a way that they can differentiate themselves within this market, because there's always a lot of different pest control operators within a given area. And so it is interesting.
Yeah.
And then one of the last, features or innovations that we want to do in the future is software integration. And so pretty much what that means for us is pretty much we're working in ways that we could sync the Aki Trap app with popular, CRMs
Hmm.
or field service platforms. So then, a lot of these people in this or a lot of the people in the industry are already using certain CRMs or field service platforms and they want to have it all in one place.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
so if you're a pest control company, the moment a trap triggers, it can automatically log the event, perhaps for that specific customer within the CRM and
Right.
then notify the assigned technician, pretty much do it all in one in that system. And then it would update their job schedule or the customer portal or like, pretty much send them an invoice or something like that. And once
Right.
all of these
Right.
actions are done. And so that's something that we're definitely excited for. And I know that when we've been talking to people as well, it is something that they're excited for because, they're already using different services within the industry, in order to make this happen. And so pretty much the bigger vision that we have down the line or just developments or features is, we want to make OcuTrap part of like that connected network or the internet of things essentially that ties not only the field technicians, but also the office and
Right.
then the customers together seamlessly. And
Yeah.
so, every new feature that we release, whether it's hardware or software, brings us closer to that vision that we have where, we're wildlife management is not just more efficient, but more transparent, humane, and data driven. And it makes it a lot easier for pest control owners just to get us and improves their bottom line, but also improves the field technicians' job as well, or maybe gets them more revenue as well,
Right.
or even makes customer service a lot better for their clients, because they'll be notified if there's an animal inside or if the wrong animal is there. And so that is something that we're trying to do. And that is the bigger overall mission and vision that
Right.
we have for OcuTrap, but also the features and innovations that we're working on. And, as I mentioned in the beginning, we're a small team, we're a startup, and it's just between me and my co founder. We're pretty much juggling a lot of different hats right now. And so it is difficult, but we're ready, and we've been doing this now for the past 5 years, and so it's a long process, but we know that we
You'll
we
get
are
there.
here for the long run. Yeah.
You'll get there. Yeah, it's funny. I don't iron clothes much. Usually, if I'm in a hotel room and I have a conference or something, I'll iron my shirt. But
Yeah.
my thing is when I take that ironing board, I think the ironing board is the exact same. I'm 60 years old, and from like I can remember, there's no difference in an iron board now 60 years ago.
Yeah.
So I always think to myself, man, I wonder if somebody could come up and make an ironing board better. Well, that's what you've done.
Yeah.
You've taken a simple, functional device, this trap that works. The intent is to trap something, but you've made it so much better using technology. And I applaud you, and I think it's great, and I think the impact on the industry is going to be going to continue to grow and get bigger because you're solving so many problems. The technician has more time. That like you said, everybody wants everything integrated. Voice for Pest. That's what made us who we are as a company is our integrations with different field management software. So I think it's great, and I'm excited. I think everybody that I like to say the 9 people that listen to the podcast are going to be pretty excited, but we'll get that out there. Well, this has been great. So I think we're gonna finish this thing up with our last couple questions. Is there any final thoughts you want to share with everybody on OcuTrap or where we're going? Where you're going? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's just that re-emphasis on, smart trapping isn't just about changing how people catch animals. It's changing the entire business model of certain pest and wildlife control, operators, owners, and stuff. And so we're always listening to feedback. We love critical feedback, and when people give us suggestions or ideas or something, we're a small company and we would implement it. We
Right.
listen to you, and we listen to every email, every phone call, any suggestion that people may have. And for years, operators have had to rely, or owners had to rely on manpower. Driving from site to site,
Right.
checking dozens of traps, and burning time and fuel just to find the outcome of some traps are empty or they have been falsely triggered. And so that kind of labor doesn't scale. They have been doing it the same way, and some have found good ways of scaling, but we can make them or help them scale beyond that. And if an Aki trap fits within their business model or their system, then that's great. Something that I think we try not to do is we don't try to be a car salesman and push this trap for you, because if it doesn't fit in your business model, because certain business models, they might make money from checking the traps every so often,
Right. Right.
and the more times they go out there, it's the more money for it is for them. And so then that may not work for them specifically, but in other cases it may work for them. They might make just charge a one-time price, one-time fee, and then if they're out there for less time and get that money a lot faster, that or in a more effective and humane way, then it makes sense for them specifically. But there is always some sort of advantage that the Aki trap can provide people, not only the operators and the owners, but also just people in general that may want to capture a raccoon on their own, or although it is tough from experience. Both Graham and I had I tried to, but like it is tough. But with the Aki trap, it makes it a lot simpler for
Awesome.
them to do that, and so
That's
it
awesome.
is super interesting with
All
that.
right. Well, Carissa, come on back. We're gonna get a couple questions we're gonna do. There she is. So that was fantastic. I mean, I I was impressed before, but now I'm even more impressed. So you guys have done a great job. So so I'll ask the question and then I'll answer it first to give you time to think about it, because I already know what the question is, because I try to be fair. So
Uh-huh.
first question is, would you rather live in a treehouse in the jungle or an underwater bubble house? So treehouse in the jungle, underwater bubble house. So my answer would be, I would have to go with the treehouse in the jungle. I've always lived really close to the water where it's kind of always green and stuff. And I think I would go crazy after a while, being stuck underwater. That's my answer.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I would agree with you, Raymond. I think I
Uh,
would rather live in a treehouse in the jungle because there's a lot more room to maneuver. I feel like
yeah, yeah,
being like in a bubble or like underwater, it would just feel like I'm constricted to that space. Although, like on the other bright side is like it would be cool to live underwater as well, because there's probably a lot of things that we don't know about, like the depths of the ocean, or
right,
like, what's down
right.
there. And being down there would be interesting, but not for me, not for
Well,
me, maybe for some other people,
it
but
it would be interesting to be able to like go on vacation. It's nice and
yeah,
quiet down there. Nobody's going to bother you. There's no road noise, right? You just
exactly.
get a little quiet time, but then you come back to the treehouse. All right, Krista, what's your answer?
I'd have to say treehouse too. I don't want to be
Uh,
underwater.
uh,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I want to meet somebody that says, no, I'd rather live underwater, just to try to understand that, because I don't think I could. I think I could do it. Um,
Yeah.
all right, so this is one, again, I'll ask it and then I'll answer it. So, what is the best surprise that you've had in your life? Whether it's a present, whatever, what's been the best? And I'll answer my question. Where I used to work years ago, I'm a geek. Anybody that knows, I'm a big cat lover. I love dogs too. Don't hate me. I love all animals, but I have cats, right? And so several years ago, it was my birthday, and we always did
Uh-huh.
birthdays big where we worked. We would decorate, whatever. So one of my employees came in and said, "I have your birthday present. You have to close your eyes." So I'm in my office. I close my eyes, and she goes, "Okay, open it." And there was a cat. So she brought her cat in to spend the day at work with me, and it was one of those cats that just was perfect. It would just hung out with me, it followed me around. It was the best work day I had in a long, long time. So that was a really great surprise for me, that I got to spend the day with a cat. So that's my answer. Carissa, why don't you go next? That's surprise.
Um, I'm not one for surprises, and I'm hard to surprise, but I'll probably say
That
when we
doesn't
got when
shock
I
me at all. That doesn't surprise me about you. See what I did there?
when I got
Yeah.
engaged, because
Yeah.
my husband, really put in the effort to make sure I didn't know. So it was an actual surprise when it happened. So I'd say that.
So were you upset that he surprised you, or are you okay with it?
I was okay that time. He got one
Okay.
time. That was it.
Yeah, I know people that they get really upset when you surprise them. So what do you think, Brian? What's your answer on that one?
Yeah, I feel like it's for me, I love gift giving. Like that's the main thing. And so it was I feel like a couple years ago, one of the best gifts I received was from my sister actually. She pretty much compiled a video of pretty much all my friends and family saying like something nice
Wow.
about me and put it
Wow.
all on a video. But I was not expecting that because I usually expect like, let's just say like a pair of headphones, AirPods, or like something like that in that sort of way. And she had it was a pretty long video. I was not expecting this long of a video, but I don't know. It just showed the impact that I've had on like not only on like friends and family, but like the students I've mentored as well at Lehigh University as well. And so that was like above and beyond. I was not expecting that, and it's
Yeah.
probably one of the best
Wow.
gifts I've received in a while. And
Well, that's she put a lot of heart and soul into it, a lot of thought. So that's amazing. That's a great answer. I think you won that answer. That's a little better than my cat for a day, but I like my cat for a day. All right. Well, I guess we're done. Thank you, Brian. It's just fantastic, fascinating stuff. I look forward to seeing you out there in the trade show world.
Well, yeah, if the people want to see us at various trade shows, we'll be at various trade shows in 2026, including the Las Vegas Wildlife Expo, as well as other ones. We'll pretty much show them on our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. We'll pretty much show. So the people can follow us on there at Aki Traps, so OcuTraps, and they'll be notified of whether or not we're going to be in a city near them or near you.
All right. All right. They're traveling roadshow coming soon. All right. Well, that's
Exactly.
awesome. All right. Well, everybody have a good day. Final wave. See you later. Thanks, Brian. And
Bye.
we'll see you at the next episode. Thank you for joining us.
See you next time.